Hello my friend, it's King Gabriel here again, and this is another impromptu video. The topic of today's video is why science and spirituality must align for progress. Now, some view science as a practice that looks at things in the materialistic standpoint, the form of things, and finds facts and information to say why things happen in this experience. And science is necessary in that way. Spirituality, by some, and you will find different definitions of this as well, but loosely defined, spirituality is the seeking of the soul and spiritual values and the bringing of them or the expressing of them into life experience. Right? That is what spirituality is viewed as by some people. And what has happened is that over the years, what was called spirituality at one time, or more so religion, right, had created such a state that some people knew that a lot of wrongdoings, and when I say wrongdoings, things that were not in alignment with the divine purpose of life, were taking place. And so people like Descartes and all of these scientists that had to put forth their propositions realized that in bringing them forward, they would actually have to somehow avert religion altogether, right? So they cast religion out of it completely, and in a sense they also cast out spirituality, because what had to happen at that point was they actually had to put forth the information in such a way that it would make sense to everyone, and they also had to leave that what they thought was craziness, right? Spirituality and religion all in one basket. They had to leave it out of it because they were faced with a bunch of resistance from the religious perspective, or the humans who were in the religious perspective, who decided that anything they were saying was propaganda because it would actually destroy their leadership of the minds of that time, or their rulership over the minds of that time. And so that's what took place. It was all on the magnetic level when you think about it, because what happened was these religious leaders and some spiritual leaders were actually imposing information on human beings at that time and having them think of something that was outside of them, that governed life, that they had no access to. And they would say things like, God is everywhere, and I'm using these words just for this purpose, and that God is everywhere and that no one knows the mind of God, right? Which is really silly if you think about it, because if it is everywhere and it is within you, then, well, you might just have access to it as well. It's part of you. And so it's really silly to think that some people thought that way for such a long period of time, and up to this day there are people who will get really worked up about a statement like the one I just made. And that is because they're steeped in that thinking still. Nothing is wrong with it. It's just an experience. But the truth about it is that you'd be wasting a lot of time having an experience that doesn't allow you to continually express that which is within you that wants to be expressed. So then why do that? So back to what I'm talking about. Science and spirituality. They needed to come together because by science taking spirituality and religion out of the picture completely, what had happened is they became completely materialistic, where they would look at things totally based on facts, based on information, based on what could be seen, based on what was tangible. And the only problem with that is that it leaves purpose out of the question. Because when you look at things, for instance, a cell, the human cell, right, it has a purpose. It takes in the specific nutrients that it needs to sustain life, right? And then it gets rid of all the waste. How does it know the difference between what's good for it and what's bad for it? How does it know what to take in and what to give out? You know, there is consciousness there, obviously. The cell is able to distinguish between what would hurt it and what would help it. That is consciousness yet again, right? The molecules that make up the cells as well, right? Before the cells were made, there were molecules. The molecules decided to combine in a specific fashion to form cells that could be reproduced. Now, where did that come from? Is that guesswork too? No, it's consciousness yet again. And we could go even further than that. We can go to the electromagnetic impulses that formed the molecules. Where did that come from? right? It had to be conscious in order to form the molecules, in order to form the cells. So when we look back a few levels, we realize that all through the picture there's always consciousness, and we could go even further back than that. We can go to electricity itself, the electromagnetic force that is displayed in our experience. Tesla played with it a lot, right? It is a thinking and conscious force as well. Some people look at it and they think, oh, it's just these fierce streaks of light going through the sky or whatever. But no, it's actually a conscious living being, just as fire is. Alright? So it's really crazy that we look at things as if they're so different to us and like in a whole other realm, and look at it from a materialistic point of view, when really everything that we experience here is underlain or has within it consciousness, right? So some may say that consciousness is this made-up thing that scientists have spoken about, and they're trying to get a grasp on what they cannot grasp, and it's beyond our minds and all that. But you know what? No, nothing is beyond our minds, because everything is in our minds. So it's up to us to see whether we'll waste our time continually saying, well, you know what, we'll never get that. It's not up to men to understand that. Human consciousness could only understand that. No one can know God and all of this stuff. That's just talk, and that's people who are too lazy to do the work. That's the truth about it. I just said it. It's people who are too lazy to do the work and to put themselves through the process to allow themselves to arise to divine consciousness. And they try to continue to tell everyone else that it's impossible, but nothing is impossible. We do the work, we continue to lock in. We may fail sometimes, but we continue to lock in. We continue to lock in, and by continuing to lock in, by getting stronger and stronger and making the choices towards divine consciousness continually, we start to express only that which is divine consciousness. We leave behind all the other traits of human consciousness. So it's really up to us. Wear it. That's really what it boils down to. If you want to look for your Christ and your Buddha and your all the other stuff, look for it right where you are, because you are it. And let nobody tell you any different to that. Because it must, for you to see it, you must be it. And you know that already. This is nothing new, I'm telling you. Why not apply that to your spiritual practice as well? If you want to see it, be it. Be the Christ, be the Buddha, be whoever you want to be. Be King Gabriel. Be who you are. And let that shine. Let that come through. Let that be who you emanate in. Let that divine idea come through and express through and as your life. You know, and I know I'm kind of talking to you here in a way, but I'm talking with you too. Because this is me. This is me I'm talking to. Right? It's us both. And that impulse that I'm talking about in terms of magnetism is within consciousness. It has purpose. You have a purpose. Without you, there would be no one to fill that specific gap that you must fill within this universe. Right? And that's really all I wanted to leave you with today. Science and spirituality must come together, because until science accepts that spirituality is part of science itself, then there can be no looking further into the unseen, into the things that cannot be seen but can be understood, like the wind blows and rustles leaves. You don't see the wind, but you see the leaves rustle, so you know the wind's there. Our lives, our expressions, our joy it does come from nowhere. It comes from consciousness, which is from awareness. They cannot see those qualities, but we can experiment and see what they do, see their effects. And this is what we're doing continuously. We may not be dubbed official scientists in white lab coats and all that, but everybody's running an experiment in their individual lives. We're all scientists at heart. We're scientists and spiritualists. That's our nature. So, that's what I wanted to leave you with today. Purpose is important. Your purpose is important. Every single thing and everyone is important. Eternal love and infinite peace.